Do you still feel comfortable with this, Kea? She kept asking that, so I'm sure she had a reason. Yes, I said. Yes, of course. That ended up being the last time she asked. I could only wonder what had been the point of being so insistent. Soon after, guests began to stream into her great dining hall, and I watched them with eager eyes. Not a single one could be seen without fine garb, perfect posture, and excellent etiquette. I couldn't understand how Miyu could still look so far and away superior. Her hair wouldn't stop glimmering, nor her skin glistening. In comparison, my skin was pale, and my hair a bland mess. Miyu rose up to greet her guests. "Would you like to join?" she said. "Yes, of course." Right away, all the guests came over and flocked around her. Through the night, Miyu would go on to introduce me many, many times. "This is my dear niece, Kea," so she would say. We'd agreed to parade me around as her niece, so that's just what we did. Time passed, people downed drinks, and appetizers faded. Miyune stayed the center of attention through it all, and her gravity didn't cease until courses began to roll from the kitchen. Only then did the guests find seats at the table. Etiquette was nothing new to me, so I felt comfortable being in the midst of high society. I'd kept out of mingling for the most part, thus far, being more than content to observe. My mouth nibbled at good food in the meantime, and that's when an old woman paid me mind. "As for your niece, she is simply adorable." "Her brilliance is celestial," Miyu said, her voice dripping with authority. "That is the way of my house." She was so confident when she said things like that. Excellence seemed like a doormat to her ways and what she could achieve, and all the older woman could do in reply was submit herself. "Yes, Lady Miyune, your house is above all others." Everyone replied to Miyu with such reverence. They were all desperate to look good in front of her, which made a simple truth clear to me. Miyune was the head of all these pieces. "You can see for yourself why faith is ever vested within me," Miyu said. "I accept nothing less than excellence." And to that, a new voice leapt into the fray. "To see your empire for myself," said a man, "is inspiring." "Truly, I say to you, this is nothing compared to what will become." Miyu raised a goblet and hid a soft grin behind it. She must have caught sight of the peeks I was taking, because she turned to me. "I hope you do not feel left out, young one?" "Of course not," I replied in a cute tone. "I am having an excellent time." "I really can't say enough about what a delight she is," someone said of me. Miyu raised me an eye. "Well then, Kea, would you be so kind as to honor us with a song?" If I went on too much, I'd get too into my singing and probably never stop. I decided to just roll with one tidbit at a time and take things from there. Everyone around me lit with awe, even before I finished the first verse. My lips continued to sing, and I ignored the guests' reactions. For now, ignoring things while I sang was simple enough. nowadays. In times past, I had to be able to ignore every and anything. Ich war senza Unraveling. Back then, I'd had no choice. That last verse left everyone bright-eyed, so I stopped. Stop while you're ahead and all that, right? I ended up in dead silence, which made me uneasy. Did they hate my language? I didn't blame them if they hated everything about the world I'd come from. All the bruises and gashes I'd had from back then were healed by now, so I guess I felt new ones were long overdue. Is that the old language? A guest cried. Miyune nodded. It is so, she said. Dear Kea is one of the wonders of our world. I can see that, but here I'd thought the old language had faded into history. Miyu's grin stayed put, and she took another drink from her starlit glass. It's more common than you'd think. You really are the magician we hear you to be, a new woman said. Miyu chuckled. You are only beginning to understand. But forget about that for now. How about the matter we all came here for, Your games with Haria are dangerous, a man said. That only depends on whether or not Lord Keras sees them as a danger and feels the need to act in a corresponding manner. Precisely, the man replied. Lord Keras is not the sort of man to play around with. Lord Keras is the last thing on my mind, Miyu boasted. I have met him before on several occasions. I can tell you with absolute certainty that I will have him licking my shoes when all is said and done. The man's face grew sour, and his eyes furrowed into the floor. That's blasphemy, he cried. If you hear the words from my lips and show faith, so be it. If you doubt, then you have no place in this operation. It really is that simple. I pray the spirit of wisdom befalls you by night's end. Miyu exuded an aura of confidence that nobody could deny. I've called this dinner tonight only to know who or who will not follow me, she went on to say. I ask nothing more of those who follow me than what they already do. I will handle Lord Keras myself. Keras must have really been something if ill talk against him was considered blasphemy. People shook their heads and stressed over the decision at hand, and I swear most of them started to beam sweat. My lady, turning Lord Keras to our will, one woman said, how can it be done? With a certain amount of charm and a few visits on my part. You would visit with him. You actually believe he'd have an audience with you? You don't believe I can? Miyu said, her voice getting sharp. Then tell me, do you doubt my will or ability? I want to know. This was all it took to make the woman squirm. No, I don't doubt you. Good, because I will personally guarantee you that Lord Keras will be aligned with us by the end. This all sounded good to me, because I knew my songs could be useful in Miyu's conquest. Furthermore, the more she flaunted me around as her gifted niece, the harder it would be for her to sweep my disappearance under the rug at a later date, which might discourage her from trying. I'd just joked about serving her well 2 days ago, and yet my ability to do just that could make me too valuable to pawn off. Unlikely? Yes. Possible? Also yes. There was no harm in trying. Dinner continued, and Miyune kept the topic of their operation off the table. Miyu did not resurrect it until the night hit its end. Once again, I thank you all for your attendance. Now, before you all leave, I only ask a notice from those seeking to leave the order. She started to look around the assembly of nobles. Nobody dared speak a word. Anyone? She asked, looking around. Nobody? She said, continuing to look around. I couldn't imagine that anyone would want to be the first one out, so I wasn't surprised when nobody opted out. Well then, she said, it looks like many will prosper from our mission, many, many indeed. People began to take off right after, leaving Miyu and me alone yet again. You were very attentive throughout the whole dinner, she said to me. Yakin. It dawned on me that she was more cunning than I'd first thought. I'm a very curious person, I said. I just really love to learn. Yes, you are much like I was, my dear. Again, she lost herself to thought. Before I could poke around to see what was brewing in her head, she snapped back to the draw. I know what you want. You want to see the world, roam forests, climb mountains, feel the sands between your feet. You want to see the glimmer of life. Am I wrong? She had me dead in the water. I don't think anything she'd said wasn't right on the money. Well, yes, I croaked. I am very interested in seeing the world. That is quite fortunate, Kea. I have a friend I wish to see, she said. He fights in the legions, but I wager you have yet to hear of those. Am I not wrong? Zavach. She really was quite the magician when it came to conversation. Rather than reply, I tried to think of a way to break her momentum. Unfortunately, I failed miserably and couldn't even spit a word. She took the conversation back over because of my silence. The Legions is a famed series of events in Sohal, one that turns the art of sword play into a team sport, shall we say? What teams fight? I said. Many famed cities in the land of Sohal have a team, or legion, of their own. Battles are held all throughout the season of Senithira, with each city vying to become champion of the year. Something about her felt different. Like a hidden gear had clicked into place. I couldn't pinpoint what. She just had an overall shift in aura, I guess. Have you any familiarity with the lands beyond Sohal, my dear? No, just the names. Then we will have to venture to those too someday. She was always so smooth and collected. Her suave felt more deadly to me with every passing second. "I'm excited for you, Kea," she said. "I'm very excited for you to see the land." A grin wrapped around the side of her face. Her perfect posture made my 14 years of etiquette training look like a joke. Even the inflection in her voice was all too perfect. In the end, she was treating me better than anyone else I'd ever known, and she did intend to show me the land. I guess I couldn't complain much. Yet. At least.